Thanks, Brooke, and welcome to London, the undisputed world capital of clubbing and dance music. So what's your scene? Hard house, progressive house, techno, trance, hip-hop, garage, drum and bass, left field. It's all here, but what does it all mean? This then is my quick tour of the state of dance music now, starting with house and beginning with a little history lesson. In 1987, a new type of dance music arrived in the northern English town of Manchester at a club called the Hacienda. It was house, and it came from a few predominantly black clubs in Chicago and Detroit. At the same time, an 18-year-old Frenchman arrived at the Hacienda. He was Laurent Garnier, who would soon become one of the leading lights of the dance music scene and remains one of its most innovative forces.
From one day to the other, the wave, this massive wave of house music came, and then Friday night became house music with Mike Pickering, and then after that, basically every night became house music, because it was just such a revolutionary thing. It was much rawer than anything. It was very funky, thumping. It had a much stronger bass line and kick drum than any other records was out at the time.
The technology of the day implied two major changes. First, DJs started to customize music to maximize its danceability, speeding up or slowing down tracks so that they ran into each other seamlessly. This new customized dance music culture, together with the availability of drum machines and samplers, meant that suddenly almost anyone could and did make dance music on affordable equipment in their own homes.
Or 4-beat. And that's just a simple bass kick repeated over and over. And then you bring in a tom. Quite simple. And bring in a mid-tom. And a high tom. And then you can have a rhythm shot for effect. And a clap. And the hi-hats. Okay, so there's your hi-hats. That's your basic house beat.
The big difference between the original black house sound and both acid house and techno was the use of the sampler, and Britain led the way on that.
I'll fade in now a 303. Okay, that's the 303 sound, which is typified by its very squidgy, squeaky bass line effect, which can be altered according to how you want the sound.
And hard on the heels of Chicago house came Detroit, which was more European influenced from the start, using Kraftwerk-style sampler sounds and sowing the seeds of what became techno.
Detroit was influenced by very different music than Chicago. Chicago has always been a disco town, as much as Detroit has always been a New Order, a Kraftwerk, and a P-Funk. So the music was different down there.
Germany perhaps always led the way on techno. No one talking about modern dance music can avoid mentioning Kraftwerk and their innovations in electronica. But in the early 90s, the Northern European influence on house music was somewhat cruder and led to what's now called hard house or hardcore.
Hard house, happy hardcore, very much a nosebleed music, very aggressive, very powerful. I can play an example, something like this. The Dutch, the Belgians, the Germans were taking techno records And they weren't too interested in the gimmickry of the sample technology. They were more interested in the hard beats.
Another spin-off from house, which employed these faster beats, is trance, which, like acid house, relies heavily on sampled sounds, but with a more driving rhythm line.
Total ecstasy. Tomorrow.
Now, trance music is pretty much like acid house in a way. It's slightly faster. There's a lot more ethereal, kind of dreamy synthesizer music used in the background. It's very repetitive. It doesn't surprise you. You kind of know what to expect. It's very...
House has now survived nearly a decade and a half, and its chief proponents, while remaining true to its spirit, have come a long way from the utter simplicity of its origins. Laurent Garnier now works with jazz musicians and is happy interweaving acoustic lines and driving beats to create what has been called the thinking man's house music.
I think we've kind of closed a circle where it started to be very raw, very machine orientated, and then you know the wheel went round, and then we're going back to the roots, which is back to jazz, because this is where we're coming from. We're coming from jazz, we're coming from funk, we're coming from disco, we're coming from all these things put together.
House music, since its beginnings in Detroit and Chicago, has survived many mutations and will survive still more. In our next meeting, we'll trace one of its many offshoots up the happy hardcore path and to the depths of drum and bass. Now it's back to you, Brooke.